Peace, we are at the center of our map, the sun map. We're at the seed phase, and we are going to tend to the original seed at our altar. There's other videos explaining how this process works and all of the reasons why we start right now. So I'm bringing you right into part one with this video, that the whole phase is from the 21st of September through November 5th. This first part is really through September 26th. And it's to imprint love into your earthly existence. It is time to see separation as an illusion. As you grow your capacity to choose love, you end the abandonment story. And through divine timing, when you're meant to fulfill something and when it's done in truth, then it shall be done. We move into part two, which is a separate video on October or through October 20th. And this phase is about invoking the spiritual essence into practical living. The third video will be your Belong on Earth with Divinity, and that's through October 31st. We're really imprinting your personal seeds for the year's goals. And then part four is to remember that your source is holy, and so are your seeds. And we're going to place all these seeds on the vessels of the scales, and this is November 1st through the 5th. So let's understand quickly what Gate 1 really is. It is where you offer your free will to commit. And you get to decide if you want to choose God, to choose love. And when you do, you have pure potential. When you decide to remember your original prayer, it is also the access point into time, into another cycle. And it is the direction of the center to show us that we're all equal. We're all in this together. You're not special. Your problems, although they feel real to you, we are dissolving all of them back to the earth, back to the soil, back to the clay. And so at the center, when you make this choice, you accept the commitment to remember your oneness with God. You move into this first stage, or Gate 1 on the Bhagwan map. That is when you receive your compass rose from God. You always have it, but until you decide to remember, right? That's what supports you to create with Creator. And through your lifetime, you tend to this seed in your mind. God's galaxy is actually within your mind. It's all just a figment of our imagination that anything is happening outside of the one shared mind. We understand that we live on Earth, right? And that this is our cosmic journey into time. You've left the etheric field of space, of timelessness, of oneness with God, and now you have an earthly body. The downside of this experience is you see separation between you and others, as well as between you and God. And some of us have not recovered from that wound. That is the core wound of humanity. Just gonna say it. The upside of the body and being on earth is the opportunity to share love with humanity. And with your free will, you can choose to commit to a daily practice. So it starts here with the next cycle, with this construct of time as we collectively recognize it. I've got other videos on this, and you can tap all the way into your birthright. But at this point, I just want to align you into the center, into this cosmic reflection. When you come onto the earth plane through your personal portal of time, this is where you begin your life. And for the purpose of this curriculum, this is where we start. So the archetype of your seed is a number one, right? They inspire a new perspective on your topic. You get to wield new tools here. You have the capability to create change. It reminds you that you're a beginner on the path, hopeful, excited, and an open channel. You can use your will to hear God's will over your egos. And in remembrance, you actually hear and hold stories of your ancestors, but you have to choose whether they are pure memories, whether you have the vision of the one. And this is found in the priest archetype as the starting point to represent self-awareness, that I am at the center of the circle. So I'm going to share some tools with you, more symbols. If you relate to them, great. If you don't, just don't worry about it. But we have an animal spirit, a plant spirit, a smudge, some cell salts, some flower essences, the first being the eagle. This represents great spirit, and it gives you the courage to take this journey, right? It takes courage to do what we're about to do. It also is another representation of your compass and free will. Our plant is the sunflower, with the symbol of one plant has many seeds. You can grow 100 new sunflowers from that one. And our smudge is Palo Santo. Now, I encourage you each time, you don't have to use this, but with each cycle, it will change. And I want you to use ethical sources, okay? And our cell salts, we're going to have these as our main cell salts that will be helping us: Kali Sulf to clear that congestion of the ego to reach the holy mind, Nat Phos to dissolve the way to truth, to justice, to balance, to the beauty way, Ferrum Phos, which regulates the true manifestation of your holy prayers with God, Calc Carb to tend to any maturity stops around this process, and Kali Phos to align your prayers with the right mindedness. So for each phase, I really give you some more emotional support. So that one was cellular support. Now, emotionally, we use gem and flower essences because they're soft, gentle reminders for the body to find home. I actually use a 10 mm potency because this adds to the vibration that you're going to be feeling in any fractures for all of time on Earth. So as we enter this phase, there's a different blend designed to go in and awaken any dormant cells. For this one, there's actually two. It's the Divine Masculine blend and the Divine Feminine blend. Both are attuning. And so the masculine blend is holding amethyst to address any inner conflict, especially in the paternal line, to release anger, and sunflower to release hostility. It actually moves with the sun, right? And so that's the kind of divine, balanced masculine energy we're going for. It has rainbow light and a very famous South American plant to knit together your aura from crown to root and root up. It also cleanses the maternal line here, again, bringing balance. And then chalice well water to offer tranquility to the whole emotion. The divine feminine blend is different. It's going to restore more of the divine feminine lineage, that ancestral place where lapis lazuli is our gem for the maternal connection, Herkimer diamond to invite in your true self. And it balances these fervent voices of the will of, I'm going to follow my heart. I'm going to listen to my God, right? So there's aloe vera. We have the grounding corn to give us some balance and protection for that sensitive soul with this contract of modern living. It's also what pushes that modern woman to stress and overwhelm. So I had Fawn Lily to integrate the highly spiritual into the modern society. And there's an evolved and healed soul that also comes to that chalice well for restoration. Two more remedies: Hornbeam to allow for acceptance, balance, and joy from the dull, and Star Tulip to represent this connection to the higher world and build a chalice-like vessel of the human soul. The next layer we look at is what's going on in our culture and our society during this phase, because the compass rose influence helps you look at what's happening in the season and your season. So although the weather may matter in your particular location, the system isn't based on that. So these still are going to be external events, and you might connect or change your seasonal altar in this way. So many cultures honor their new year in September. Ethiopia's was September 11th. Rosh Hashanah happened this year in September. Sometimes it's in October. Yom Kippur, Indigenous Peoples Day, Halloween, when some people dress up to really address what they're truly seeking. And you can do this by planning and tending to the seeds of your life's garden. Then in November, we have La Dia de los Muertos, All Saints Day, where we're tending to these lineage lines. And then daylight savings time, that very obscure practice, happens at the end here. So let's ground into some tether phrases. When we commit with our compass in the center, we have determination. You're grounded in your commitment to show up each day, determined to be in vertical alignment with the inner voice of love when you say yes. When you say no, you're following whatever distraction comes in and says, hey, go here. Hey, eat this. Hey, do that. Does this align with your values? Are you centered in the holy? Because the center is where you're going to offer your seeds and your prayer to make it holy. Only God can do that. It's also about possibility, right? You have the capacity to grow into your divine self, to remember God's plan for you. How can you hear God's voice for your part? How can you make plans with God for the year? This is not another manifestation class. It's the opposite. It's about divine listening. What is it that you're meant to commit to? This plan is going to come in the right timing, but it starts here at the pivot of the center. When the goal is truth, truth will be revealed. You don't need to search for truth, just what's false. Truth rises to the surface and you'll see it. It isn't based on the mind's perception. Now we're going to look at our metaphorical garden in the seed phase because you stand in the center with your basket of seeds. So once you arrive at fall equinox, you boldly begin the process of encoding your seeds with your plan. Now, it's the most harmonious time to set goals, but first you have to lay the groundwork. You don't just start planning right away. So let's look outside. Depending on your hemisphere and your equatorial location, the literal growing season is finished for some and starting for others. For annual goal setting, the alignment with the natural rhythm is to start planning your next garden. It's the preconception time before you take your seeds on an underground journey so they can be planted, rooted, and then sprout up to birth at the horizon in spring above ground. So when does the cycle start? All right, we're going to review. Winter, January 1st, can't be the start because in most of the Northern Hemisphere, the ground is frozen or close to it. Plus, these months were added and are not agrarian-based months for most of Northern Hemisphere. This is the time to be reflective, not set New Year's resolutions, right? Spring is often misconstrued as the start of the seasonal year. However, it cannot be the start of the cycle. Why? Because those buds, those blossoms, they all took energy to produce. Yes, it shows your growth. And summer, you see all the fruits, so that can't be the start. It's peak of solstice, right? So the aligned start time after you pull in the harvest, after you turn the compost, after you come in from the field, you come in from the lists, you are seeing the growth. Then it's time to purify all that happened. Let the mission rest. This is the time to reset. The next cycle begins after the end of the big harvest. The knowledge of your harvest infuses into your plan for next year. All you gleaned expands you. That's why fall equinox is the time when we begin to plant our goals. There are foundational steps to prepare the way. You don't just start, right? You have to flourish. Your attention, wherever it goes, that's where the energy is going to bring in, right? And although we've seen a renegade squash certainly pop up in the compost to surprise you just how encoded seeds truly are, it's a divine miracle when you think about how a small seed has the genetic code to draw into its true divine plant. The other biological fact is that each seed only grows what it's meant to be. Simply put, a sunflower seed grows a sunflower. It has no desire to be a rose. Can we bring this kind of cellular alignment into our goal setting in a world full of distractions? It's through tending our internal garden that we even begin to understand. That's why we have this practice at our altar, and specifically our goal altar. This isn't just any altar I'm talking about. The point of focus allows us to listen to the inner voice of love and hear the divine wisdom that is your personal instructions. Are you ready? We're about to get into it. So during the seed phase, you're going to build your altar for the year. This altar is where you pray. Move energy that's stuck. Place your gratitudes and ask your questions. Step 0 is to clear the space. The literal beginning here is a space cleansing, and you may need to spend some time here first, vacuuming, dusting. They're not just literal acts. They are the elevation of the mundane task here to holy assignments, because you are making space for you. And you don't need to know your tether word yet or any of your goals. You're just making space for the transformation to sacred space, which leads us to step 1, make sacred space. Choose your main altar that you will be working with all year. You may have a family seasonal one too, or other altars. This is your goal setting altar. Step 2 is to build belonging at your altar. So you're going to find a symbol to represent your belonging to love. What is the mature energy that you can learn from in this cycle to tend to your internal belonging to love, right? Through reestablishing oneness in this first part of the seed phase, you're going to be able to then re-imprint your belonging with each seed you plan in part 3, where we're starting that in October 21st. Okay. Why are we doing this? Because we want to imprint love into our earthly existence. Remember in the beginning, I shared separation is an illusion, right? And that you grow your capacity to choose love. Every time you do it, it gets easier to choose it next time. This is how you end the abandonment story. It is so literal. When someone, how about I say it like this? When you perceive that someone is walking out on you, if you choose not to come into that illusion, if you choose to open the door and say something loving, you get to connect to potentials that haven't come to fruition in the timeline with that other person, right? So specifically, you can sort through life experience like this. When have you self-abandoned? When did you run towards someone? When did you choose love? When didn't you choose love? How can you love? How can you go back through your prayers at the altar and see what is ready to be healed into its final stage? You know you're there when you've attained love. That's a big one. I know. So step 3, you can always pause to do the work, okay? Step 3 is to find representations of the 5 elements that I work with. Okay, these are going to be symbols on your altar practice. I have the element map practice for more ideas and guidance in my app. You can really embody the message of integrated elemental cosmology here. So let's just review: ether, fire, earth, air, and water. You want a symbol for each of these. Why? Because before elements even come into form, before plants grow, before a baby's even born, there is a thought, a notion, or a vision of what it could be. Now, this is the moment of correction to imprint with love. So we're going to bring in our element symbols and make sure that they are imprinted with love. Who formed the thought? How do you know that water is water, right? Is it your ego mind? Is it your God? What power do you believe in? What's bigger than your ego? This is when we're really listening for these higher power instructions, your personal directions. Now, I can't give these to you because these are very personal, but we're going to use the symbols on our altar, these elements, in order to hear our daily instructions. So if you're familiar with the element map, it's much more grounded when you dive into that piece. So if you need to pause and go look at what the element map is, I'll put that link below. Okay, step 4. How can you represent yourself at the center of the map? So you're looking for a picture of yourself that you feel really free in. Perhaps you're a young child. You want to look at the imprint here because this is when you really hear your divinity echo. And if you do any of my other courses where I talk about your earth sign, that's where you want to look for insight into this, because your earth sign will reveal that true nature and connect you to the original seed. Okay? Let me know if you have questions. This one's getting deeper. And in our full sun map, we're really putting down our ego goals and we're setting goals with God. So I want to invite you to hear God's voice. What's best for me? What's next for me? What's loving for me? Let me choose to be happy. Let me choose to be kind myself. You're re-imprinting, returning to your original echo here. This is going to take a collective maturity, right? This is going to help you learn from the cycle in regards to healing the wounds. If you don't feel whole here, you want to pause. You want to take this time at your altar, because when you ground into the divine, you can then experience more fluidity and optimal flow in your life. But if you're still stuck on the wound, everything else is going to feel a little bit more friction. Okay, step 5. I'm moving fast. You can always pause. Step 5 is find a picture of the Divine Mother that suits your preferences and place it on your altar. Why? Because you are invited to mother all parts of yourself that haven't been loved or cared for. This one is really tending to all of the other things I've shared about the steps. This one is how you receive love, right? When you choose love over fear, you make different choices. You think different thoughts. You say different words. And often at this stage in a pregnant woman's story, there's so much intervention that tries to imprint genetic and external predispositions. So we got to mother the mother, okay? Give the loving care, give the compassion. It illustrates what a spiritual person does after they attain some level of consciousness, which still exists in the land of separation, right? And truly, there's no level of spirit. The miracle minded goes back and helps others. So our role is to offer love to humanity. You can only do this when your mind is healed first, okay? So now we're going to drop into that phrase again, this prayer of remembrance of the seed of your heart. You've done these steps. This is about that pure potential of remembrance, remembering to walk with God and the seeds within you. The most important information is the conscious act of remembering your seed inside of you. Can you surrender to the seed God placed inside of you? What are you ready to seed that tends to the original seed? Get clear on this original seed. Because through divine timing, when you're meant to fulfill something and when it's done in truth, it shall be done. Next, you're going to declare your prayer at your altar. Now, this exercise is about declaring your faith. You're going to write a letter to the God of your heart and see what's here. How do you align your goals with God's plan for you? Honestly, that's how deep this process has to get. Otherwise, it's going to stay outside of you in a place of vanity. Tons of people can teach you about vanity goal setting, ego goal setting. Nope, I'm here to teach about connecting to God as the essential step to accept your mission on earth. You're here to do something. Your function is forgiveness. It's time to truly live committed to the possibilities of the new plan to your goals ordained by your Creator. So, step 6, that function. It's a forgiveness practice. We're going to do whichever method you like, okay? You can either place a golden platter on your altar, and this is where you're going to write your grievances on. Or another practice some people like is 3 bowls, and this helps you sort your emotional process. So 1 bowl is something you're grateful for, 1 is something you have a grievance with, and 1 is something you're open to seeing differently. This is where I pattern interrupt. My favorite phrase is, show me how to ... So show me how to see love. Right? Speak directly to the God of your heart or your one teacher. Then we will use the daily elements to guide what is ready to release each day in our start and end of day practice. So this altar you're building is for your goals is also the place where you're going to bring your grievances, because behind every grievance is a miracle. And that's what you're signing up for. When you commit to this practice, you are moving through a forgiveness practice. In my app, Be Biodynamic, it will show you the sidereal moon sign, and that will guide you into which element is going to help support you each day in your practice. If you want to add that piece, that is a different layer of the map. You can just stick with a very wonderful forgiveness practice. 1 golden platter would be enough. So I say all of these things here in this first part of our altar practice to imprint love into your earthly existence, right? That's the pattern. And it's in order to step into your true function and your part in God's plan. You have one function, to be an emanation of love. And on earth, this requires forgiveness. God reveals your present role and your key instructions to be truly helpful. Can you see what is meant for you to do next? How can you extend love? You are now one with love and restored into oneness. So this is the end of part 1, imprinting love. And the next phase we're going to talk about how to invoke the spiritual essence into practical living. If you have come across this video and you want to join the Sun Map, this is my intro. This is the first step where we are doing this altar practice. All of these pieces will come together as we walk through the entire year. This is our point where we choose to set goals with God. Are you ready? Peace.